Thank you for joining Startup Portal's Equity Crowdfunding Summer Series. This week's funding portal is SeedInvest. My name's Rick Leinbach. I'm a former public company CFO and current consultant to equity crowdfunding companies. Each week we take a facet of crowdfunding, a funding portal, and a company to look at as we go through the evaluation of the crowdfunding process. This week we're going to start with the mission. A company wants to replace Party City and take over the industry by appealing to customers desperate for a better option. People are taking a technology-driven approach to smart hiring. These are missions that companies are laying out in SeedInvest crowdfunding world. And the mission of most companies allows them to identify themselves with potential investors, as well as evaluate, can their mission become profitable? So that's where the mission of a company is so important. Mission here at Startup Portal is to help individuals with business plans and laying out that future where you can see not only today, not only 6 months, but 5 years down the road. So really when you're looking at a business model, what's your mission? And we'll go through an example of SeedInvest's mission, as well as another company, Code Combat, today, to look at what is their mission on a go-forward basis. Really when you examine who are you, what type of business do you want to be, or do you have in mind, or are you currently operating? With equity crowdfunding, and it is a significantly growing source of crowdfunding, do you have that personality to have shareholders? Or do you prefer to go to the bank, which is an option for a lot of companies? Are you looking at equity crowdfunding as something that, hey, you can see yourself increasing your own pay or paying yourself more? Certainly wouldn't advise that as part of your premise or your theory. The network of friends that you have. With crowdfunding, it is the crowd. So a lot of these portals you'll see with SeedInvest have a nice crowd, but what is your current network? Have you tested your friends and family validation? That is a theme that's been going on through a lot of this series. And do you have a business plan? What is your plan? And have you laid that out to yourself before you lay it to anyone else? Crowdfunding and going on the crowdfunding portals is not about sharing every single aspect of your business. It's about telling investors who you are, what you're going to do with the funding, and how potentially they can see a return on that funding. So really when you lay out a business plan, it says, how much do I need? And in today's story with Code Combat, they've identified what they need, and they've identified markets that they're going to go after if they achieve everything. So you break it down to say, if I can raise $500,000, I can do this. If I can raise $1 million, I can do this. So that's the premise of the overall business plan as you're looking at equity crowdfunding as a potential solution. Now, regulation crowdfunding itself is relatively new. The requirement is to have a funding portal. The max raise with equity crowdfunding currently is $1,070,000. They're working on some rules to increase that. There are limits on individual investors. And obviously, anytime you're dealing with securities, the SEC is involved and there's disclosure aspects. Now, with the portals, there are 50 of them. Each week we've looked at the larger portals or portals with certain facets of raising capital through rev share. With SeedInvest, the story here is about one of the larger portals, and certainly one that anyone looking at to use crowdfunding would put them on the list, certainly to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward. And with SeedInvest, I will say the key element here for equity crowdfunding is they have 300,000 investors. With equity crowdfunding, you're talking about the crowd. And with 300,000 investors to pitch your story, success can come very nicely. And SeedInvest has put up a platform that, in essence, matches companies that are looking to raise capital, larger amounts of capital, and their own investor base, as well as venture capital and angel investors. So it's not just the 300,000, so it's a broad network. With that, it allows you to look at essentially larger raise amounts. SeedInvest, and this is per their website, but they have a higher capital raise on the average than most other funds. So having that broad base investors, venture capital, angel investors, it's important and something to think about. So SeedInvest is the leading equity crowdfunding platform. And as I mentioned, they have venture capital and angel investing. They work as a partner. as you're getting set up, which is very important. Obviously, with the industry being so new, that you have guidance, and they provide that guidance. And one piece of the puzzle that I'm particularly fond of is the due diligence or the vetting that they do for companies. Knowing that investors are investing in a company that's been vetted, it's not an audit, but you looked under the hood, is important for the confidence of the overall industry and the overall investment. So it does help. Obviously, with any time crowdfunding, there's no guarantee. So placement fees are on par with the industry, and they also have an equity fee. So potentially it could be a little bit higher. However, when you look at the fees that you're paying, you have to give a broad perspective of, 300,000 investors that are going to potentially have eyes on it, angel investor, venture investor partnerships, or discussions, let's say, that have an opportunity to grow. So that fee may seem higher to the industry, but just take it in perspective of how much you're trying to raise, who you're trying to raise it from, and really, I profess, look at the second financing, not just the first, if you're going to need it. That goes back to that business plan. So, if you're going to need millions of dollars down the road, that fee in itself may not be, higher than the most industry. The return on that fee could be pretty good, without a doubt. Now, here's a sample of the offerings from SeedInvest that are currently ongoing. Code Combat we'll talk about in a moment, but it's a preferred equity. Their target is $478,000, and they're in excess of that. Coterie Party, they are the ones that want to change Party City. They've kicked off into six figures now for their campaign. Obviously, each one of these have their own business model, business plan, own specified needs. And clearly, when you're looking to raise capital, your need to start out is different than someone else's need. As you can see, the target raises here go from 200,000 to $1,025,000. So just think about that as you look at the overall process. And again, I mentioned that little asterisk there. Each one is vetted, which is very important, in my opinion, without a doubt. So let's talk Code Combat, which is one of the companies that are currently on the SeedInvest portal. Nick Winters is the CEO, and Nick specifies his passion for technology and language learning, and his experience teaching kids how to code fits right in with his overall mission. So they're looking to raise up to $1.3 million in funding. Here's an example from their website of how they teach children to code. The philosophy is to take it into a game and have children understand coding as they go along. So teaching kids to learn at an early age is similar, in my opinion, to teaching them a language. And they'll pick up the facets of coding and hopefully benefit them and all of us down the road. Their market is obviously students getting involved in games, interactive games, video games, and that online market is growing. Their focus is the US and China. Nick's experience with a foreign learning app, and I think it's Asian based, will fit nicely into expanding into that market and basically very large markets to start. One of the elements that I've seen in Code Combat is solving the problem. Schools are looking to figure out how to do online learning, but they've really laid out to say they're going to engage the kids. It's going to be effective. How effective will they be with Python and JavaScript, which are coding languages used today? The scalability with no teacher that needs experience for coding, and then the distance learning are all problems that need to be solved. And when I was going through and looking at Code Combat, this page stuck with me in that all of these points of engaging, effective, scalability online, all of them should be in your own business plan, because every business is likely dealing with how to solve the online problem, or how do you scale? When you look at business plans, how am I going to scale my business? So I bring this up that it really is not just one company, but many or all companies today have similar problems to solve. And that's where crowdfunding is coming in as a solution to some of these problems, because you can identify it, you can see it, and you can fund it rather quickly. Now, their use of funds. As I mentioned earlier, if they raise the minimum, they're going to focus on R&D, sales and marketing, and general administrative. Currently, they've raised $760,000, so they're in excess of their minimum. but they're looking to get to 1.3 million. And then that 1.3 million, they're not taking a lot of money, but they're taking 4% of the money to expand into China. Again, the CEO's experience is a positive attribute. The geopolitical aspect of the U.S.-China relationship today may seem tenuous. However, long term, two major markets. So they've identified their need. They've identified their use of funds. So Code Combat and SeedInvest are a good fit. SeedInvest, $300,000 investor base. For me, the vetting aspect, the due diligence is important. Code Combat sees the online learning landscape, and this is a time to capitalize on it. So really, from today's session, do you have a business problem that can be solved? Is crowdfunding the right scenario for you? And most of all, do you have a business plan that lays that out, that helps you tell the story, the financial story, and really summarize that so you can have that network of friends and family, and you can take it to the crowdfunding community and raise capital if it fits for you. And with that, we at Startup Portal are designed to help take you through that process. We say from plan to profit, from business plan, help you through the crowdfunding process as you go and select and vet through your portal, to looking out how to do financials or taking care of your financials along the way, and really helping you see the 5 years down the road. So I hope today's session was helpful. Feel free to contact us, reach out social media. We have a Facebook crowdfunding site, and we'll put a link below for my Calendly. If you'd like to book a session, be glad to talk to you and help you vet through your crowdfunding world. So look for us next week, July 20th, 8 p.m. Once again, thanks for following Startup Portal. Startup Portal does not receive commission by any stakeholder or crowdfunding portals. This presentation is strictly for informational purposes only.